Live streams, raw, unfiltered moments happening in real time. And sometimes, viewers witness moments that were never meant to be seen. From shocking incidents to eerie broadcasts that took a dark turn. These are some of the most disturbing moments ever caught on Livestream. Tetsuya Shiohara's story began in Japan, where he was born and raised. He spent part of his education in the United States before returning home, aspiring to become a lawyer. But after failing the bar exam twice, his dreams of a legal career collapsed. Unable to find stable employment, he fell into a long period of joblessness, financially dependent on his parents, living alone in a small apartment in Japan. In 2015, Tetsu discovered live streaming, a window into a world beyond his own. Through his broadcasts, he shared the mundane details of his life, finding comfort in the interaction with a small but devoted audience. His viewers encouraged him to push beyond his isolation, and in 2017, he took on his first outdoor adventure, climbing Mount Fuji alongside a regular viewer named Soden. The experience sparked something within him, and he made annual ascents of the mountain in the years that followed. But despite this newfound passion, his personal struggles never disappeared, and his financial situation remained the same. By 2019, his life had taken a darker turn. He had been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer, with only a 7% survival rate. Tetsu wanted to climb Mount Fuji in late October. Long after the official climbing season had ended, the idea came from a casual remark in his chat, a viewer expressing a desire to see the view from the summit in winter. Whether it was his own desperation or a desire to entertain, Tetsu accepted the challenge, despite knowing how dangerous it was. Tetsu made almost no effort to prepare properly. When he began his stream on the morning of October 28th, his viewers immediately noticed how poorly equipped he was. He wore a fleece jacket and thin gloves. He carried no food, no ice axe, and no flashlight. His only supply was a bottle of cold tea. From the start of the climb, Tetsu seemed uneasy, admitting that he was the last passenger on the bus to the trailhead. The emptiness around him should have been a warning. There was a reason no one else was making this climb, but he pressed forward, disregarding multiple no-entry signs warning about the extreme conditions ahead. His progress was slow. Viewers could hear his labored breathing, see him stopping frequently to catch his breath. Whether it was exhaustion or the cold creeping into his bones, his condition was deteriorating. He repeatedly slipped on the icy paths, and he complained about his fingers losing feeling. Near the 7th station, he encountered 2 tourists who were making their way down. They asked if he was heading to the summit. When he said yes, they warned him that it was too dangerous, that they themselves had turned back. But Tetsu only laughed, brushing off their concerns. Higher up, the trail became nearly impossible to follow. Buried beneath snow and ice, he struggled to find markers, voicing his frustration to his chat. At one point, he realized he had forgotten his ice axe, crucial for maintaining grip on the slopes. His viewers, now fully aware of the danger he was in, flooded the chat with warnings, begging him to turn back. But he refused, joking nervously that he would, quote, try not to die. As he approached the summit, he paused near a steep drop-off to take a photograph. He removed his gloves, exposing his already frostbitten fingers to the brutal cold. Then he slipped. The live stream captured everything. The sudden gasp, the spinning sky and rocks, as he tumbled down the mountain. For 11 seconds, viewers watched in horror as he fell. Viewers immediately contacted Japanese authorities, triggering a search operation that same night. But worsening weather conditions and the remoteness of the fall site made a rescue nearly impossible. Helicopters and ground teams scoured the area the next day, but by then, hope had already faded. On October 30th, search team discovered a body approximately 2 kilometers from the summit, near the 7th station. His injuries were so severe that the body was unrecognizable. Forensic investigators took weeks to confirm that the remains belonged to Tetsu Shiohara. It was just after 9:30 a.m. in Tokyo. In the middle of it all, a young woman named Airi Sato held up her phone and started a live stream. Airi was just 22 years old. She lived in western Tokyo, and she had built a following on live streaming platforms. She would often chat with fans, walk around the city, share bits of her life. On March 11, 2025, She was walking alone near Takatanobaba station while live streaming on an app called WhoWatch. I couldn't find the footage of the live stream anywhere, so I will try my best to describe the incident. As the stream rolled on, something happened. Viewers suddenly heard her scream. On the street, few feet from where she had been streaming, a man wearing a black hat and a face mask approached her. Without saying a word, he began stabbing her. Witnesses later said they saw him attack her from close range. After she fell to the ground, he didn't run away. Instead, he calmly stood over her and pointed his smartphone at her body. He also took her phone and filmed himself on the live stream. What viewers didn't know at the time was that this man wasn't a stranger. His name was Kenji Takano. He was 42 years old, and for the past 3 years, he had been watching Airi online. He had met her in real life multiple times, and it had all started back in 2021 when he first discovered her streams. At first, Takano had just been a fan. He liked her videos, followed her accounts. But then, around August 2022, something changed. He started visiting the restaurant where she worked. That's when he began showing up in person. They started talking. Eventually, he began lending her money, large amounts, because according to him, Airi had said she was struggling to pay for her living expenses. In total, Takano would lend her more than 2 million yen. That's over $13,000. And he didn't have the money just lying around. He had taken out loans from consumer credit companies to lend to her, but Airi never paid him back. By early 2023, she had stopped contacting him. In August of that year, Takano sued her. The court ruled in his favor. She was ordered to repay everything back and some more. But even after the ruling, she didn't return the money. In January 2024, Takano went to local police and reported her missing. She had completely disappeared from his life. To Takano, it wasn't just about the money. It was personal. In his mind, she had wronged him, and the world needed to know. That's what he later told investigators, that if he committed a crime, if there was a trial, the world would finally understand what she had done. About 2 to 3 months before the stabbing, he bought a survival knife online. He kept the receipts, he packed the weapon, and then, when Airi publicly announced her live stream schedule, Takano watched. He was able to pinpoint her exact location just by following the video. He got up early on March 11th and traveled over 60 miles from his home, all the way to Tokyo. He knew exactly where she would be. When he saw her walking alone, holding up her phone, talking to the camera, he didn't hesitate. He approached her quietly. Without a single word, he began to stab. In total, Airi suffered over 30 stab wounds, many of them to her neck and chest. The attack was brutal. Witnesses nearby said they heard her screaming for what felt like 30 seconds. Then, everything went silent. One man, a construction worker who had been on the second floor of a building, said he rushed to the window when he heard her cries. From there, he saw a woman lying on her back in a gray sweatshirt. A man in a dark coat was standing over her. Within minutes, police arrived. Someone had already called emergency services at 9:55 a.m. Takano was still at the scene. He didn't run. He was arrested on the spot. First, on suspicion of attempted murder, and later after Airi died in the hospital, on suspicion of murder. She had been stabbed so many times. Despite emergency efforts, her injuries were too severe. She was pronounced dead later that same day. Inside Takano's home, police would find more than 10 bank transfer receipts. Some of them were transfers to Airi. He had kept everything. Takano's mental state is now under review. Police have said they will investigate whether he's mentally competent to stand trial. On December 2nd, 2020, Russian streamer Stas Reeflay went live from a rented house in the Ramenskoye urban district. What started as yet another night of drinking and reckless behavior would end with one of the most disturbing moments ever caught on a live stream. Reeflay was part of a growing and deeply troubling trend: trash streaming. Popular in Russia, Ukraine, and Poland, trash streams thrive on controversy, humiliation, and outright abuse, all for the sake of attention and donations. His girlfriend was often the victim of this. He even had a price list for people who could pay him to do horrible things to her. That night, alongside Reeflay were his girlfriend Valentina and their mutual friend Marina. They drank alcohol and engaged with the audience. At some point in the night, Stas and Valentina got into a fight. Stas struck Valentina multiple times on the head and body. The fight escalated, and as she stumbled, she accidentally grabbed some wires, interrupting the live stream. This infuriated Stas. He beat her again. Then, he dragged Valentina to an unheated boiler room and locked her outside in nothing but her underwear. It was the middle of the Russian winter, and temperatures were well below freezing. Marina, their friend, tried to intervene. She wanted to take Valentina back inside, but Stas refused. Frustrated and likely afraid, Marina left the house, leaving Valentina alone in the freezing cold. Stas resumed his broadcast, casually telling his viewers what had happened as if it were nothing. He told his audience that Valentina had been acting in a way he deemed unworthy. He claimed he, quote, gave her a couple of slaps and baptized her 10 times. His way of saying he poured cold water on her. Valentina had a bowel disease, and Stas later said he left her outside to, quote, air out, because she smelled bad. After several hours, his viewers urged him to check on her. Finally, he did. But by the time he opened the door, it was already too late. Stas dragged her back inside and placed her lifeless body on the couch. He can be seen attempting to revive her and begs her to wake up. He tells his viewers that he thinks she is dead and that she is not breathing. The broadcast continued to his tens of thousands of followers for 2 hours after she had died, even after he called an ambulance. He continued filming as the paramedics pronounced her dead. The cause of her death was a severe head injury from repeated beatings. Valentina had also suffered from severe hypothermia. According to the official report, Valentina had been pregnant. This wasn't the first time Valentina had been subjected to abuse on stream. In a previous broadcast, viewers had watched as she was sprayed with tear gas. Reports suggest that a viewer had paid Stas $1,000 to make Valentina stand outside in the freezing cold. On April 27, 2021, Stas was sentenced to 6 years in a strict regime penal colony. He was found guilty of intentional infliction of grievous bodily harm dangerous to human life, resulting in the death of a person through negligence. But then, in February 2024, the Ulyanovsk Regional Court reduced his sentence. Stas was released from prison and instead sentenced to forced labor for 2 years, 10 months and 13 days, with 15% of his salary deducted as punishment. On the morning of April 12, 2018, 27-year-old Ranita Williams of Louisiana was at home, minding her own business. She lived with her mother, Anita, and her younger brother. She was just trying to recover from a rough breakup. She had recently split from her long-term boyfriend, Jonathan Robinson, and like many relationships that fall apart in the age of social media, things had gotten messy. Much of the drama played out online, especially on Facebook. Jonathan had moved on rather quickly. He was now dating a woman from Texas named Sharika Taylor. It's not entirely clear what exactly was said between Sharika and Ranita, what insults were exchanged, or what posts triggered it all, but there had definitely been some sort of back and forth between the two women. And whatever it was, it seriously enraged Jonathan Robinson. Sometimes, when emotions get high, people do irrational things. And as foolish as it often is, some men feel the need to defend the honor of the women in their lives, even when that honor was never in danger to begin with. But no one could have predicted how far Jonathan would take things, because what began as online pettiness was about to explode. Before Jonathan showed up to Ranita's house that morning, he made a stop. He drove by his aunt's house to retrieve something he had previously hidden in her basement, a high-caliber semi-automatic rifle. When he arrived at Ranita's house, he was so delirious with rage that he didn't even bother to turn off the engine of the vehicle he arrived in. He grabbed the rifle from the passenger seat, marched up to the front door of the home, kicked it in. Then he started shooting. The first shots weren't aimed at anyone. They seemed intended to scare. He sprayed the inside of the house with bullets. Ranita's mother escaped out the back of the house. Meanwhile, Jonathan quickly found Ranita.
Here you go, John. Give it to him. Here you go. Give it to him. Here you go. See him right there.
She was terrified. She believed she was about to be executed right then and there. But Jonathan had something else in mind first. He told her to go live on Facebook. Jonathan wanted Ranita to apologize. Not to him, but to Sharika Taylor, his new girlfriend. He wanted it public, on camera, broadcast live to the world. With the barrel of a rifle pointed at her head, Ranita complied.
Now, apologize.
Didn't know. I apologize for going live on Rika. I ain't had no business doing all it. My page been blocked, so that's why I'm going live. Yes, I know I was wrong. I ain't have no business going off like that, but...
See right there.
She apologizes over and over again for whatever online offense Jonathan believed she committed. Meanwhile, outside, her mother Anita was hiding in the backyard. She dialed 911.
Report police, what's your emergency?
Can you send the police to 1301 Madden? Because they shooting Jonathan Robinson.
Okay, is he shooting now?
Yeah, he's shooting now, ma'am.
Okay, is everybody safe inside of the residence?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
My daughter in there with my son.
A police officer was within earshot of the initial gunfire. She immediately rolled up to the house and stepped out of her patrol car with her pistol drawn. Jonathan spotted her from inside.
You think I'm worried about the police right now? Huh? You think I'm worried about the police right now?
No.
So tell you, bitch, I don't give a about no police, you heard? Bitch, want to be famous, I'ma make famous.
Filled with rage and with the live stream still rolling, he executed Ranita, shooting her dead while she kneeled on the floor. Then he turned his attention to the arriving officer. He exited through the busted front door and opened fire on the officer. Using trees and parked cars for cover, he sent round after round of high-caliber rifle fire. Bullets smashed through her vehicle, forcing her to crouch behind the wheel for cover. She got on her radio and called for backup. Just 2 minutes later, help arrived. 2 officers sped to the scene for backup. They jumped out of their vehicle and returned fire with their pistols. Their return fire pushed Jonathan back into the house, but he wasn't finished. Soon, 2 more officers arrived. As they ran across the street to gain a better angle, Jonathan opened fire again, this time from a vantage point on the 2nd floor. Miraculously, no one was hit. From this position, Jonathan pinned down nearly every officer on the scene for almost an hour. They couldn't approach without risking being shot. They couldn't fire blindly into the house without risking civilian casualties. Finally, a full SWAT team arrived and began to move into position to breach the house. Just as they were clear to enter, Jonathan announced he wanted to surrender. As the team prepared to enter, Jonathan suddenly opened fire again. One of the SWAT officers took a round to his right wrist. To the shock of everyone, Jonathan appeared at the front door. He walked out, unarmed this time, and lay down on the front lawn in a gesture of surrender. Officers moved in fast. Anita and her son were led to safety. For Anita, it was too late. She had died on the floor where she was forced to kneel, executed in front of a live audience on social media. At his trial, Jonathan Robinson pled guilty to first-degree murder. He admitted to opening fire on police because he wanted them to kill him. On the morning of August 26, 2016, a man with the online handle SatDex popped up on Facebook Live. The man on screen was Armin Schmieder. In the video, Armin grins and gives the finger to the camera with a playful energy. He zips up a red and blue wingsuit. He straps on his helmet and sunglasses, then lifts his phone to show the view from the cliff's edge near Kandersteg, a picturesque mountain village in the Swiss Alps. Then, in German, he says, "Today, you fly with me." He waves once more to the camera and zips the phone into his wingsuit. You can hear the rush of wind as Armin leaps from the cliff. The airflow grows louder, more violent as he cuts through the sky at terrifying speeds. But then, there's a scream, the muffled thud of impact and tumbling. Then, stillness. The only thing left in the audio is the distant clanging of cowbells. Those watching the stream didn't know what they had just witnessed. Others told Armin in the comments, "Say something, write something," but there was no reply. Armin Schmieder was 28 years old. Italian by birth, he lived in Freiburg, Germany. He was a father. He was experienced in extreme sports, but had only been using the wingsuit for about a year. According to friends, he wasn't reckless. He knew the risks. But wingsuit flying isn't like parachuting. It's one of the most dangerous activities on Earth. Unlike a parachute, a wingsuit gives you speed and direction, but very little margin for error. After the live stream ended, authorities confirmed that Armin had died. Whether it was pilot error, an equipment failure, or a misjudged maneuver, no one knows for certain. Facebook didn't remove the video right away. Despite desperate requests from Armin's own family, it stayed live for 36 hours. His mother and brother had seen the video. They had commented during the stream itself, asking where he was and what happened. The Good Luck Have Fun game bar in Jacksonville, Florida, was hosting a Madden NFL 19 tournament on August 26, 2018. Gamers had flown in from all over, with around 130 to 150 participants and spectators packed into the space. David Katz, 24 years old, was among the competitors. He had flown in from Maryland to take part in the event. Online, he was known by the name Brett, but in real life, Katz had a history of serious mental illness. He had been prescribed antipsychotic medication, diagnosed with conditions like dysthymia and oppositional defiant disorder, and had been committed to mental hospitals multiple times. Despite this, he was legally able to purchase firearms. He brought 2 handguns with him to the event, one of which had a laser sight mounted directly beneath the trigger guard. He kept the weapons in his car. Katz had previously won $10,000 in a 2017 Madden tournament, but this day wasn't going his way. He lost the game and was visibly upset. Witnesses later reported that he had been acting weird when he lost. He even refused to shake the winner's hand. For a moment, he left the venue. At 1:34 p.m., the first reports of gunfire appeared on social media. Livestream viewers on Twitch, where the tournament was being broadcast, heard what sounded like loud pops and screams. The camera disconnected. But even without video, you could hear everything. One of the tournament's announcers said he had just been interviewing one of the victims moments before the shots. That victim was Elijah Clayton. Elijah, just 22 years old, was known in the community as True or True Boy. He was a well-respected Madden player from California. He had actually made a last-minute decision to attend the tournament. A video clip that circulated afterward appeared to show a red dot, the laser sight from Katz's gun, on Elijah's chest just seconds before he was shot. Another victim was Taylor Robertson, aged 27, from West Virginia. He went by the handle, "Spot me please." Like Elijah, Taylor was a pro in the Madden world. David Katz fired 12 rounds. He targeted Elijah first, then turned and began shooting randomly into the crowd. 10 others were hit. Some of the wounded were able to run out of the bar and onto the street, seeking help from anyone nearby. At the time of the shooting, first responders were training in the area. Victims ran directly to them, covered in blood. Paramedics began helping patients immediately. By 1:36 p.m., just 2 minutes after the first 911 call, emergency crews were on scene. The Coast Guard was even called in to sweep the nearby river, just in case more people had jumped into the water to escape. Inside the bar, Katz turned the gun on himself. When police entered the venue, they found him dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. For a while, there was confusion. Some thought there might be multiple shooters. The sheriff's office later confirmed there was only one. The sheriff's office used Twitter to post real-time updates. At 2:45 p.m., they confirmed there were fatalities. 8 minutes later, they announced that the suspect was dead. They shared that the FBI had joined the investigation and were coordinating with police in Baltimore. Officers raided a home in South Baltimore, believed to be Katz's father's house, as they tried to piece together what had led to the attack. In total, 11 people were taken to the hospital. 10 of them had gunshot wounds. One person was hurt while trying to escape. Some of the wounded managed to get themselves to safety, even driving themselves to the hospital. Others were carried out by friends or assisted by first responders. The next day, hospitals reported that several victims had been released, while others remained in recovery. Gan, 29 years old, was a travel vlogger with nearly 5 million followers across social media. He had carved out a unique niche, exploring food, culture, and life in countries far from home. On December 4th, 2022, he was broadcasting live from the streets of Kathmandu, laughing with 2 friends as they made their way through the crowded market. In a flash, stressed screams were heard. The frame shook violently, as if the phone had been knocked or grabbed. The street scene turned chaotic, and then the screen went black. At first, viewers didn't know what they were watching. Some may have assumed it was a technical glitch or a prank. A later recording from the scene shows Gan sitting in the middle of the street, dazed and soaked in blood. His hands pressed to his chest and stomach. People around him were screaming. In the background, a man's voice can be heard swearing in Chinese. It was believed to be 37-year-old Gan Souijong, a fellow Chinese national and alleged rival influencer. Eyewitness footage shows Gan half lying on the ground, clutching at his abdomen, trying to observe the severity of his injury. He gestures desperately, reaching out, asking for a phone, possibly trying to tell someone to call for help. He was rushed to the National Trauma Center, but despite doctors' efforts, he died later that night from multiple stab wounds to his chest and stomach. Gan wasn't alone during the attack. His friend, Lee Chuzan, 32, was also stabbed in the stomach and hospitalized in critical condition. Police arrested Feng shortly after. According to reports, it wasn't a random act of violence. This was personal. Feng had been living in Nepal and, by all accounts, had a long-standing grudge against Gan. It stemmed from multiple unresolved disputes and alleged debts. Feng claimed that Gan had once stolen over $1,700 from him, money he said was used to buy a new phone. He accused Gan of far worse too, alleging that Gan had once given him food tainted with COVID, and even sent men to rob his home. Whether any of those accusations were true remains unclear. In 2016, around 8:45 p.m., on a Wednesday night in Chicago's North Lawndale neighborhood, 28-year-old Antonio Perkins decided to go live on Facebook. He was standing in a vacant lot, holding his phone up, streaming himself and a few others chatting and hanging out. Roughly 6 minutes into the live stream, gunshots can be heard. Antonio barely had time to react. The camera shook violently as he was hit. He collapsed face first onto the ground, shot multiple times in the head and neck. The phone dropped into the grass, facing upward. The screen tilted sideways, partly obscured by blood-soaked grass, but the stream didn't stop. You could still hear people screaming and crying. He was taken to Mount Sinai Hospital shortly after, but by 9:07 he was pronounced dead. The live stream stayed up on Facebook. Nearly 700,000 people would eventually watch it. And even now, it's still viewable, with a warning label about its graphic content. A spokesperson explained that while the footage was disturbing, it didn't violate their policy. Police initially described Antonio Perkins as a documented gang member, but his family tells a different story. His father said Antonio wasn't involved in any gang activity. In fact, he had just turned a corner in his life. He'd recently gotten a job at McDonald's. He was trying to turn things around. He was trying to build a better life for himself, and more importantly for his 3 kids. No suspects were ever identified. To make matters worse for the family, Antonio Perkins' brother was also shot to death several years before the incident. That was the video. For more content like this, check out this video YouTube thinks you will enjoy. Stay safe, and until next time.